All right, guys, welcome to Beard of Darkness Book Reviews live stream. I'm here with self-pub author Mr. DB Rook. How are you doing today, buddy?
Doing very well, thank you.
I
Very
love the
well. Very,
bookshelf,
very
man.
pleased to be here.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it happens all the time. I always warn people. It's kind of like laggy. So if I accidentally interrupt you, I promise I'm not trying to be rude.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's just like the lag or whatever. But
Yeah.
anywho, tell us what book you wrote, and I know you've got some short stories out too.
Yeah. So I wrote Callus and Crow, which is the first volume of the Weird World. That's the one. Yeah. And I've also got I've got a short story out, and I've got a few more short stories in the pipeline that I'm going to condense into an anthology, possibly before the next Wayward World Chronicles book comes out. So I'm very new very early in my journey, but it's going well.
That's great, man. I love this. I like talking to people in the point of writing career that you're in, just because you're a good human. I say that a lot on here, and I get a sense of the type of person I'm going to be speaking to. Been looking for. We've had this one scheduled for a while. It's
Yeah,
been one of
yeah,
the ones I've looked forward to for quite a while. My wife
absolutely.
loves your artwork, so she's like, "Oh yeah, the really cool artwork." So that's how she refers to you. Um,
Cool. Yep. I'll
yeah,
work with that.
absolutely. But at the stage that you're at, I think it's so cool because man, you've got a 9 to 5, but you're also working towards your ambition. And you've got
Yeah.
goals. And uh, do you want to speak a little bit on like how like your time management is that really? I know you've got a family and stuff, so maybe
Yeah.
elaborate a little bit.
It's incredibly difficult. Got a very demanding job. I've got family stuff. I've got a lot of stuff like everybody has. But I've got a dream, and I've got a need to kind of get these stories out and get people reading them and get that sort of feedback loop rolling. So fit time whenever I can. I'm constantly inventing, constantly working on scenes, ideas, characters, and I just need to find time to get them out of my fingertips and get them on the page.
Sure. Yeah, that's man, I respect that so much because a lot of us we have goals and dreams or things that we look forward to doing or hobbies, but I think the amount of effort it takes to find time to do that in such a dedicated way, because writing a book, I can understand as much as I can just talking to you guys. I haven't written a book, of course, but from speaking to you guys, it's not something that is overnight, especially as a self pub author. So a lot of respect, man. Um, so Callus and Crow, what is maybe a little snippet or a synopsis, something to give the viewers a little taste of what's going on in the book?
Okay, so I will say at this point, it's very, very difficult to write a synopsis to put on the back of your book,
I'm
especially
sure.
a book with so many ingredients that Callus and Crow has. But in person, it's a bit easier. So it's Western themed. It's a post-apocalyptic story. Some kind of apocalyptic event happened which warped the world. It filled the sea with creatures, huge tentacular creatures that stopped people from crossing continents. So as people emerged from this kind of devastation, they were unaware of each other. So their cultures grew. They grew based on the things that they found in the sort of remnants of civilization past. So the Western element comes from the fact that that particular part of the world, they come up believing that the past was a Western kind of setting. So they developed in that way. Some other people in different areas of the world developed in different ways, believing that the history, rather than it being the pop culture that died, it was the actual history. So we've kind of got this bubbling pot of different cultures. And during that era, somebody learns how to cross the sea and the cultures smash together, and there's a plot that runs through that, and that's Callus and Crow.
Man, that sounds. If I'm on the other end and I haven't heard of the book, that's just a very enticing. I mean, a western. You've got post-apocalyptic. You've got really cool in my head monsters, and then you've got, like you said, they come together and it's a clash of culture and all sorts of problems arise. It just sounds really fascinating.
I think it's really important for me to devise a setting that wasn't derivative of anything standard, but I still feel I wrote a fantasy novel. I still feel fantasy is what I am. I just didn't want to write anything too. I'm not scared of tropes, but I don't want to write anything too derivative of another world. I don't want orcs in it. I don't want dwarves in it. I read that stuff, yeah, and I enjoy that stuff, but I needed a different backdrop. So I put a lot of energy into that backdrop, and then I threw the story in.
I love that, because coming up with an original kind of idea is super hard. Yeah, it's not something for the faint of heart, because it's comfortable to write a story with traditional tropes, and I guess what I'm trying to say is it would be comfortable for a writer to follow the same kind of story, just rewrite it in their own words, which I also respect. But gosh, to come up with an original idea like that, it couldn't have been easy. It probably took a lot of time.
Yeah. To be honest, that's how I started. The first thing I wrote, I never even finished a book many years ago. I started writing a fantasy novel, and it was cookie cutter fantasy novel. And who knows if it would have been any good. But I got to a point where I thought, why am I writing this? Am I just writing this so that I can put on the badge that says I wrote a fantasy novel? And that's not what I want. I want to write decent stories. So I kind of scrapped all that and started writing what I want to read.
I love that comment from Bookish Mama 87. I'm currently reading Lonesome Dove, so I love that yours has a Western theme. I look forward to reading it. Yeah, I've noticed
getting a lot of love. Yeah, I've just got that book myself. I've not started it yet.
Oh man, that's awesome. It has gotten a lot of traction. I've heard it quite frequently, even through like the fantasy booktubers and stuff. So
yeah.
It must be one of those you have to read, before you die. It must be one of those.
Yeah.
So what subgenre would you put this in? Kind of, I know you said post-apocalyptic, maybe a little Western fantasy. Am I hitting it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite dark. It's not overly dark. I've sort of skated on the edge of Grimdark. I guess for me, it's not up to me whether it's Grimdark or not. It's up to the people that read it. But there's dark elements. There's steampunk elements. It's not a steampunk book. I'm sure if I said I wrote a steampunk book, people would be disappointed. But it's definitely got steampunk ingredients. It's got vampires. It's got a lot of stuff in it.
I love that, man. And a little bit of everything. And gosh, that can't be easy either. Like incorporating so many things that you obviously love or inspired by into your own story. And I like what you said about not being happy with the cookie cutter story you were writing, because gosh, I'm sure it didn't take overnight to write what you were writing, to just scrap it. You must have felt really passionate about, this isn't what I want to do. I got to change it up and be who I am.
It was the end goal that was in the wrong place for me. I enjoyed writing it, and maybe one day I'll get it out and probably think it's awful and edit it. I don't know, but it was all about why am I writing it, and I wasn't writing it for the right reasons.
I think that takes a lot of courage too. Just to say, hey, what am I doing? Why am I doing it?
Yeah. It's kind of like I'm a musician as well. I'm in a band, and I kind of when I was a young man many years ago.
Oh gosh,
I could have been doing Metallica covers. I could have been doing just the stuff that I listened to, but I was never happy with that. I think it's about creating and pushing the boundaries and going further.
Oh, I love that. So what instrument do you play? I have to know. I'm a drummer myself.
I'm a drummer. Yeah.
Are you? Oh man, that's crazy. We didn't know that about each other.
Yeah,
we talked about so much about what we have in common, but there's another thing.
Crazy.
When I was in high school, man, we did Metallica, Guns N' Roses, but that's fun stuff. It's fun and it's creative, but I get what you're saying. I think you had to find your niche.
But I think it's important to always honor the roots and honor where things came from. It's not about saying I no longer like that, so I'm doing this. It's more like I take that and I grow with it, and I grow into the next iteration.
You're evolving.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love it, man. I love it. So what was your inspiration? What was the day where you like, this is what I want this book to be about?
You know, I don't know if this is like massively cliche, but I'd played around with the fantasy stuff. I'd written. It was very slow, but I was slowly piecing together this fantasy novel, and then I was about to become a father. And as you well know, the world is suddenly a different place. And
Yeah.
I thought, I changed my end goal. I thought, if I'm going to write, I'm going to write what I want to read. I'm not writing to please somebody who wants to see a second-rate Raymond E. Feist. I want to write something that I want to pick up, no matter how ridiculous it is. I'm going to write that. And I also said, I'm going to be a father. I'm not going to have a lot of time, so I'm going to write it as slowly and gradually as I need to, as long as every day there's 1%. Eventually, I'll get to 100%. And then somehow, through the miracle of the fabric of time, I got to 100%, and it was finished. And now I'm into this. I'm doing it. I'm pushing it as hard as I can. I'm writing the follow up. I believe this is where I need to be.
I love that. And I keep hearing you say I'm doing it because, and what that says to me, because I often have to say that to myself, you know, you take this big step in life and you kind of have to, at least me, I have to remind myself, you're doing it. You're doing okay. You're getting through it. And then you're following something that means something to you. And I hear you say that, and that's what it reminds me of. So that's awesome, man. John Douglas, he's a podcaster, another booktuber. He stopped in and said hello. So glad he stopped in.
I'll raise my coffee cup to John.
All right. That's great. He's absolutely into the coffee, man. That guy.
Yeah.
So tell us about one of your main characters.
One of my main characters. Okay, so obviously Callus and Crow are the main characters in this story. They kind of come hand in hand. There's a kind of I'm going to tread very carefully around the spoilers, but pretty early on in the book, they become entwined for whatever reason. Callus is a young not a boy, he's a young man. He's out on a ranch somewhere. Almost a little nod to Luke Skywalker, kind of out there, not seeing any of the world, excited about what else is out in the world, but him and his dad are there, kind of just eking out a living. And then he meets Callus, who is I don't like to use the word vampire. There's something really important. I never use the word vampire in this book. He has a curse that has a lot of vampiric traits.
Okay, yeah.
He's not a vampire. He feeds on blood. He's got a lot of stuff that is vampiric, and we all know and love. But it's just a curse. And he meets Crow. They end up in a kind of father-son relationship, and they go on an odyssey across this kind of fractured world. And because I use the curse in an almost addiction kind of way.
Okay.
They end up battling the idea of whether they're sharing the addiction. They're both trying to find redemption, trying to find a new way, and they are rubbing off on each other, not always in a good way.
So yeah, I like that. So they're flawed. I don't know if I enjoy more than a character that's flawed, and kind of especially if there's two of them that kind of feed off each other. There's lots of different scenarios that could go on. That sounds really interesting. What theme do you think you explore the most in your novel?
So the big ones are redemption and revenge. I mean, Callus is hell-bent on revenge. Crow is a bit more of a kind of steadying hand. But I guess the whole book There is a very subtle, hopefully, a theme that will come through very subtly that if you're searching for revenge or you're searching to right a wrong, there is usually a bigger wrong behind that. So it's very much like, yeah, I don't like you, I'm coming for revenge, but who's pulling your strings and who's pulling their strings? And it's kind of, it gets bigger and bigger until
Wow.
you've got a whole world in trouble.
Wow, it sounds really cool. So, in other words, you find yourself maybe rooting or maybe rooting against somebody, and a lot of the time, even our personal lives, like you find yourself wanting to get revenge on somebody. If you get to the depth of that or the heart of why you want revenge, and you really think about it and don't just act on your emotions, you can usually find that dark spot and turn yourself around if you really take the time. So I think that's really
Things
important.
aren't simple, are they? Nothing is simple, and yeah, by the time you've got to that point, you're poised over someone with an axe or whatever you're going to do. Is
Right.
that actually going to change? Is that actually going to make your world a better place? And I guess that's the journey that they're on.
That's awesome. So growing up, did you read growing up? Or was that kind of like a new thing as you got older or what?
So strangely, I never read a book in school. Never had any interest in books. I think it's because of the books I was asked to read. I had no drive, no passion for any of it, and I thought I'd grow up one of them people that never reads. And then in the local library, I discovered Robert E. Howard and all the Conan books, and they were mine to own. Nobody told me about them. I just found them. I can still see the shelf.
I love that.
Found that shelf and was like, and then I just
Yes.
tore through them books, and then I found my own part of kind of literacy, and I went for it, and yeah, from there it was just all the classic fantasy stuff, and then I still read mostly fantasy, but I occasionally nip out into other genres, but I'm wedded to fantasy.
That's a really cool story. And it's a little similar to mine in a sense. So I'd like to maybe relate a little bit because growing up in high school, man, if somebody told me in high school that I would be having a YouTube channel about book reviews and I'd be so passionate about it, I'd have been like, no. And it wasn't just till a couple years ago. So similar story, but it just took me by surprise and I'm just in it forever now. But
your passion is something very, very special.
Thank you, man.
I did a an interview in text, like a written interview recently, and one of the questions was about tell me something exciting that has happened, and I named you as this kind of font of passion that has completely helped to just set me on fire. So
man, that means a lot to me. Seriously, that's the whole reason I'm here, man. That touched me in the heart, man. I really appreciate that. That's the whole reason I'm here.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Man, that's the
coolest thing. I don't say
ever.
things like that lightly. You really have kind of, you've put me on a. I was already on a path, but you've just shoved me a few yards down further.
Dang, man, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. My wife would be like cheering in the background right now. She's like, "That's the whole reason you're here, dude."
Yeah.
But that makes me feel good that I have that kind of that maybe everybody can see why I'm here and not just hear it come out of my mouth. You can kind of sense it. That's good.
Yeah, definitely.
So once you grasped that love for reading, who are just maybe two authors? I like to ask maybe one or two authors that had a hand in the way that you're writing.
Okay. I'm usually very difficult at choosing anything if there's a lot of options, but in this case, Raymond E. Feist was my first kind of I'd done the Conan books, but there are a lot of short stories, a lot of sort of kind of similar stories, all about Conan, obviously, but they weren't really fantasy epics. So Raymond E. Feist was the first epic that I went on a journey with, and I went through book after book after book, and I never lost sight, and I stayed with him, and brilliant author. And then the next leap from there was Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb is my kind of Wow. So the crazy thing about Robin Hobb is I read the Farseer books, and I knew about the Live Ship Traders books, and I was so adamant that there's no way on earth that they could ever really hold a light against the Farseer books. I kind of thought you can't get any better than that. So I put off reading them for years, and then I finally read them, and they were, if not better, they're just fantastic.
That's awesome. I remember the snippet you sent me for our indie spotlight video, and that was your answer. I was hoping to hear more
Yeah.
about that, and I'm glad you
Yeah.
told it.
Yeah.
Robin Hobb has stole your fantasy loving heart,
Absolutely.
if you will.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And just the kind of I mean, the books are incredible, but the awe that it's first person, it's mostly from a gender that a different gender, but still doing it so wonderfully, and not even kind of you can kind of first person stuff. I know I write a lot of first person. You can get very much sort of like so deep inside a brain that you can go round and round and round, and before you know it, you're not entertaining anyone. You're just having this kind of conscious. She manages to have real heart and real feeling and real despair, and tell a story. A story so incredible, amazing.
You're absolutely talking up. I haven't started the Farseer trilogy. I've started like the first couple chapters, and then I put it down because I'm reading, just indie stuff.
Yeah.
I'm saving a lot of that stuff for later on, like Robin Hobb. I bought the illustrated collector's edition of the
Oh, wow.
Assassin's
Yeah.
Apprentice, and well, the reason I did is because when I do start it, I wanted like the full experience of it, and you've absolutely talked it up to the point where I'm excited.
Yeah, it is something really special. Yeah, I mean, it's strange because it's a few years since I've read them books, and I wonder if they would, if they'd be dated or not. Fantasy changes, everything shifts, but they're still incredible, no matter no matter when they were written.
So there's like 16 of them, right? Or four? Is there?
Yeah, there's a lot of trilogies that keep bolting on. Yeah,
I remember because to me it takes a lot of balls, to put it bluntly, to write that many books in a series, or even I know that they're not all in one series. There's like different trilogies, and then there's like a 4-book. Because you really have to have a fan base for that person to pick up the 16th book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So lots of respect to those kind of writers. Robert Jordan, Terry Pratchett does it too. Although I'm pretty sure all the Discworld is all standalones too, right?
Yeah, it's the world that kind of continues. Yeah, yeah.
That's a cool idea. Also, like it's got to take a lot of skill to remain in the same universe or whatever, and create a story that begins and ends. Or I don't know. I haven't read any of those books, but from what I've heard, it's an incredible series.
Terry Pratchett was an author when I was growing up and getting into fantasy. I wrongly completely avoided Terry Pratchett because I thought the humor was mocking fantasy, and I always felt he was almost like the enemy. And then I grew up. I got older. My wife is massively. There's probably can't see it, but there's a lot of Terry Pratchett behind me. And then I've only ever read one, and I read Mort, and I realized that he was a fantasy lover and humor and satire, and there was no mockery involved. The mockery was in the real world that he mocked, and I just felt a little bit stupid for having that ridiculous idea all them years.
I didn't think I understand what you're saying because from what I've heard, he, even though there's lots of humor and it's satire, but he explores some deeper themes, which is what I got from what you said about kind of mocking the world.
Yeah.
So that's another author that I'd like to get into, at least read some of them, because I'd like to be able to relate more with people who have read them.
Yeah. The problem is, especially for you, there is a lot of books on that list.
Yeah.
And I struggle big time. I struggle with how many things I just want to digest.
Right.
It takes time.
Yeah. It takes. I didn't realize this before I started doing it, but you start to sharpen your time management skills a whole lot. And that's not something that I've ever been good at. And I'm getting there. I've got schedules for like the books that I'm going to review. And I'm trying real hard to stick to them. And when I first started, it wasn't working very well, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
So what would be one book you'd recommend me read? Maybe not Robin Hobb, other than something she's written that you'd recommend I read before I die. I know these are hard questions, by the way.
That is the hardest question so far. Pick one book. Oh man. I'm going to try and give you a book quick, because otherwise I'll just go round and round and round.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a book that is possibly the only book I've ever read more than once. So I think I've read it 3 times.
Wow.
It's a standalone book by David Gemmell. Obviously, I mean, I'm a big David Gemmell fan. But this particular book I've read 3 times, and I'll probably read it again. Echoes of a Great Song.
Echoes of a Great Song. That's one of the questions I write the answers down from every single interview, because I know how hard that question is. And for the book to come out of your mouth with one possibility, it's got to be good. So did you say I know it's David Gemmell, but what was the title?
Echoes of the Great Song.
All right. That's definitely on my list.
It's one of those books that I'm really glad it's a single book, a standalone. It fits in everything and does a beautiful job. And as I say, I've read it again. I'm not the kind of person who will read a book again. But for some reason, that one pulls me back. It's not the best book in the universe. It's not my favorite book, probably, but it's a very special journey.
And I think that's kind of the purpose behind, because I think some people, when they do interviews, they kind of just go through the normal questions. I try to at least put thought into each one of my questions, and really, that's a perfect answer. A lot of the time, I get like a Lord of the Rings book, another perfect answer. There's a reason people keep repeating that. I mean, there's got to be a reason. That's a big book. I mean,
yeah.
So
I definitely wouldn't want to read that one again. All due respect to Lord of the Rings, but that is a challenging book to read.
Okay, I'm also saving that. The Hobbit is what I'm saving for when my oldest son gets a little bit older. I've tried to. He's only 4. I'm trying to test the waters already. I know he's just too young, but I will read The Hobbit when he's probably 7 or 8. I think that's probably the right age for that. So when you're not writing, what does your life look like? You got hobbies?
So yes, I'm in the band. I'm in a band called Terminal Sun. In fact, I've got the cup. It's on the cup there. I don't know if you can see that. Terminal Sun.
There it is.
That's my band cup merchandise.
That's a pretty cool logo.
Thank you. I work. I've got 2 little girls and a wife. I try and do as much stuff as I can. I'm a kind of person that likes to sign up for stuff and kind of just go and do it. Sometimes that's not always a good thing because there's only so much time in a day. But I don't know. I feel I want to experience a lot of different things as I'm on this planet, and things pop up. I will go and try and have a go at it.
Man, I respect that. Being spontaneous is hard for us, especially as adults, because we're like, oh, no, we got a schedule. We got to stick to this. So the fact that you do that is respected. I love that. And I think I need more of that in my life personally. I think with younger kids like we've got right now, it's really hard to do that. But as they get a little bit older, maybe we'll just randomly go on vacation or something, or sign up to do karate. I think that's really important.
So I've got a little story that I've told this story to millions of people. So when I was, my kids were really little, and I was struggling with the idea of like, can I still be in a band? Can I still write? Can I still do this? Can I still do that? Or do I need to devote all my time to my child? And I was really kind of struggling with the time management stuff. And a good friend of mine who'd had children many years before me and kind of already been through it, he said, when I work, I put my little girl on my knee because I want my little girl to know that daddy's not just daddy. Daddy's got ambitions, he's got projects, he's got stuff. And if she learns that that's what you do in life, you go get stuff, then that's what she'll do. So they need to know that you are not just a robot there to see to their demands and, you know, answer their problems. Yeah, you need to do that as well. But you need to show them that you have to go and grab stuff in life and get involved.
I really
stuck with me.
That absolutely is. I think that's incredible. I mean, the guy that said that to you is a very wise man, and I think he realized that maybe later than he wanted to, and he wanted to make sure you didn't.
Yeah, maybe.
I know I'll hold that in my heart, because you think about when, you know, you get caught up in the day-to-day life when you're a dad or a husband, and maybe at least for me, I tend to forget, hey, their perspective right now is not the same as yours. They're learning, they're being influenced, and they're learning how to live life by watching their dad or mom.
Yeah.
So that's really important. That's great.
And obviously there's a pitfall there, because you don't want to just be doing your stuff and ignore them. There's a balance, but I think they need to see you doing your stuff.
I think that's really cool. And yeah, of course, balance is, I think, the biggest thing, at least it was for me, becoming a dad. I never, if you would have told me like same thing about reading when I was younger, that I'd have 4 kids, I'd be like, I'm not going to be that blessed. Like, I've always wanted kids. I never thought that but you find life just takes you places you never thought that you would be, right?
Yeah.
Oh goodness. All right, so sorry, I got off topic there.
No, I got off topic. No, it's so good.
So where can my viewers pick your book up? What are some links, and where do you have your book for sale and all that good stuff?
So it's on Amazon. Sad but true. We have to kind of make use of that monster. It's available at Waterstones, which is a big chain in the UK. And that's pretty much it. You can the paperback can come from my. So I have a small publisher for the paperback called Seventh Realm Productions. So they print the paperback. I manage the Kindle version, so you can get it from their website. I mean, small press. I'm indie. I want to get it out to every corner of the universe, but it's another layer of skills I need to learn and get my head around, and that is the biggest thing about the indie side of things. Is there's a lot to learn to write a book, and then there's so much to learn after that, the end. Wow, it's such a world of new skills and new talents and things you've got to get your head around.
I've heard the marketing, like what you're talking about, is a whole nother side. You have to make sure that people are aware of what you're doing, or else they don't know. Which kind of brings me back to why I'm here. I absolutely want to scream indie names off the top of my roof, because I think you guys really deserve it. So you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram and Facebook. I've got all those links. They'll be in the description for who's watching, and in the future, a lot more people will watch this in the future. So they will be in the description.
Brilliant. So I'm on everything. I don't necessarily handle social media that well, but I'm trying to learn.
There's so many.
Yeah,
it gets very overwhelming.
I think as a kind of introverted guy who spends his kind of crafting time sitting silently in a room writing stories, to then go, right, now you need to start shouting about how great you are. That's a big journey.
It's like redundant. It's like, all right, I'm going to be good at writing because I can be alone and not have to talk to a lot of people. But you're telling me after this, I have to be the exact opposite. So that's a challenge. We are who we are. And as somebody who, like you said, if you're an introvert, that would be difficult because it's just a scary step. It is.
Yeah, it really is.
So I think that indie authors also need people. There's so many good booktubers out there that really back the indie movement, I guess, if you want to call it. And I think that's so cool.
Definitely, yeah. And I don't think it'd be possible without that community. It's it is a community. It's like a village, and you need all the different aspects to get anywhere. Because of me waving my book around and shouting as loud as I can, I'm only going to reach so many people.
Absolutely.
And who are you? Why bother reading that book from that guy? Nobody knows until you start getting a bit of momentum.
And I think a big part, at least for me, if I can go and get a sense of the book that I'm reading and their author's personality, it may not, I don't know if that's exactly what I mean, but I am going to relate more with you now that we've spoken through your book than I would have ever, if I hadn't talked to you or whoever didn't see this. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So Tom Bookbeard, he was on Twitter yesterday, and he was talking about how he wasn't going to be able to make it to see the interview right now. So he had a few questions on his behalf, and I'll state those.
Brilliant.
He wanted to know, he's got 3 of them. The first one is, what inspired you to write in the weird Western genre?
So I think I've always, like I said at the beginning about kind of having a non-derivative backdrop. I think that's an important thing, that you're not creating a world that is world A with a little bit of world B. It's kind of got to be all your world. And I think the kind of Wild West has always been, for me, it's always been a fantasy setting. It's got magic, it's got different races, it's got different cultures, it's got conflict, it's got desert land, it's kind of got everything, and it's real. It's quite mind-blowing that it was a real time when people were figuring out technology, they were making guns, they were fighting, they were claiming a land, they were digging for oil. It's a fascinating time. Even though I'm from the UK, it's not even my history. It's just a fascinating time where a world got built. Yeah. And I think, why on earth is that not a fantasy setting? So, although mine's a kind of it is a Weird West. It's not a historical thing. It's kind of based on that, and it's based on the popular culture of sort of cowboy stuff being left over.
And it reads that way too. The dialogue is very I don't know what you're saying. Like, he's the dad at the beginning says boy a lot, and if you watch any westerns, I mean, that just goes right along with the dialogue, and I love that. So it feels that way, and that I want to make you knew that. It's really cool.
That is a really big point, and really scary point for me, because being a Yorkshireman who lives in the UK but writing sort of American colloquial language,
yes,
I feel braver than I ever felt doing that.
When I was reading it, I said that's exactly what went through my mind. I'm so glad you brought that up. I said, how does he know the vernacular? Or it's like, how did he know that? Because that's not where he's from. Yeah. And you really did. You brought it home very well.
That's such good feedback. I'm so happy about that. Because I could have been a laughingstock for that, but I did it anyway and hoped that I could do it.
It makes it even more impressive. I promise. It's so funny you brought that up, because I'm so glad you did, because it was my thought process exactly. He lives in the UK. How did he know that the dialogue was like that? Maybe other than movies or something like that. That's hard to nail, because obviously here in the US we get a lot more exposure to that type of dialogue.
Yeah. That has absolutely made my day.
Oh man, I'm so glad. John A. Douglas said he's doing driving right now. He's listening. Pay attention to the road, John. He said he can't comment, but I do want to give some props for the badass cover.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And he's a cover snob. I've learned that. So that's a good.
Really?
That's a good.
Absolutely. So even the cover is kind of it doesn't scream fantasy. It's not cookie cutter. I like it. I had obviously I didn't actually create it, but I had a hand in designing and thinking about what was going to be on it, and I thought that was. I still sometimes think, is it the right cover? Who knows? You kind of do it, and you kind of hope that it's right.
I haven't heard any negative things about the cover. Only my wife she's very critical. She's a graphic designer, and she finds herself being very critical about a lot of the covers that I get. She loves yours.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, I'm getting all the good vibes tonight.
Now that's good, man, because
Yeah.
it's just honesty. Really, it is.
Brilliant.
So it's funny. I think Tom Bookbeard's the only guy I've seen so far. I mean, there's plenty of people with longer beards than me on Twitter, but who I'm friends with. Man, he's got a spectacular beard, doesn't he?
Yeah,
I had to give props to
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
But
All day with beard.
right. So the second question was, where did you get the idea for Silk and her mother as a character?
Ooh, so that's juicy. So to start with, I really want, obviously, well, for the people who have not read the book, Silk is a main character, but not like a main character. She's an important, significant part of the story, but she's not a main character. She will be returning, I will say that. But I wanted to make sure at some point I wrote from the point of view of a woman, and I felt it was a really important thing to do. But I felt I needed to just hone my skills through one book first before I do it properly the second book, because the most important thing is that I do it right, because I am fully kind of down with this sort of fantasy has not always been kind to women. I mean, you know, all the kind of classic 70s fantasy art and stuff that really inspired me, but it's never been very very fair to the fairer sex.
I get exactly what you're saying. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I would hate to add to that and just be like, this guy has no idea what women think like, and he thinks he's an author. What is he doing? Don't want to do that. I want to do it right. I want to be respectful. So yeah, that is the main reason that she's female and she's in the book. She's gonna be, or she is, quite fierce. She's not fierce in a kind of really sort of stereotypical way. She's got heart, but she's got some. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but she's got balls.
Yeah, absolutely. You say whatever you want.
And her mother. So we've all kind of read a story or seen a film somewhere where there's a sword with a spirit in it, or it's sentient, or it speaks, that kind of thing. I love the concept, but I always thought, if there's a sword that's got a spirit, what can it really do? It's a lump of metal. It's the person wielding it that's actually going to wield it. So in effect, it's just a talking sword, and that kind of didn't really cut it for me. I needed whatever the entity was to have its own movement, its own way of working. So Silk's mother, I guess I'm into spoiler territory, but Silk's mother is a bit of fabric, like a silk that's imbued with the soul of her mother. It's alive. It moves about her body. It amplifies her feelings, so it might hug her, or it might rear up, or it might pass her things. So it's kind of it's like a familiar. So that's my magic sword that speaks, basically, but it's got its own way of moving and way of expressing.
I like it. That took a lot of. Well, that's very insightful, because if you really get to thinking about it, you're right about a sentient sword is kind of just like a lump of metal that can talk.
Yeah.
And if you go past that a little bit, I think that did you very well by pondering that.
Yeah.
His third question is really where my next question was going, and what can we expect from DB Rook next?
Okay. So as I say, there's going to be a collection of shorts on the horizon. So the title of the shorts is The Shadows of the Collegiate. So the thing that will link these stories, and these are Grimdark. They're pretty damn dark, pretty dirty, dark. They're all fantasy in their own way, but the thing that ties them together is not a singular story. It's the Collegiate, which is this kind of a magic school, but we're not talking Hogwarts. We're talking like political sort of the place where all the power is.
Okay.
All the power. It's political. It's like it's tyrannical. It's everything, and the stories all center around the collegiate, but they're not in the same time period. There's some far in the future. There's very different kinds of stories, but that is the thing that holds them together. The kind of spine down the middle is this place, and I've got high hopes for that because it's I'm really enjoying writing it.
Oh, that's awesome! I love to know that that you're really. I can see it too. That you're really excited about that, and that makes me want to read it even more. And I'm sure that translates to a lot of other people too. If the author is particularly excited about what they're writing, gosh, it's inspiring, at least to me.
Brilliant. So there's an element of guilt there because while I'm doing that and I am pottering in and out, I am slower at writing the next Wayward World Chronicles book, which is underway, and that's going really well. Again, I'm loving writing that as well, but it's because it's written in a very specific way that locks into the way Callus and Crow's written. It's not formulaic, but it's something I've been writing for a long time. So the Shadows of the Collegiate was just me kind of stretching a different muscle and kind of just going in a bit of a different direction. So book 2 is absolutely coming. I would say this series of books, it's not going to be as linear as in book 1 and then book 2 follows and then book 3 follows. It's more. I'm more thinking like an aperture. So book 1 is kind of in this little circle, and then I'm getting bigger and showing you more of the world, more of the story. So I'm going outwards rather than a long left or right.
I think that's really cool. So I was looking. So you published this in 2022. When did you start writing Callus and Crow?
Well, it's kind of embarrassing because, like I said about the fatherhood, the very small snippets of progress, I think that book and that world and the outlining for the other books has taken 10 years. I don't feel good about that. I feel a little bit like that's pretty damn slow.
And I guess I want to respond to that just because like you're being real self-critical, and I always like to chime in on when authors do that. And man, I can't think of any other time frame than what you thought was the right way to write your book. You know, if it took 100 years, I mean, if there was a point where you find that it was ready, I mean, who cares how long it took? You got it out, and you're doing what you want to do, and really that's the way I look at it, and that's really admirable to stick with it for so long, for real.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. So Callus Crow's out. You've got some short stories coming out soon, and it's Shadows
of the Collegiate.
I love that. Shadows of the Collegiate. That's what we can expect soon. You're writing book 2 in the Wayward Chronicles.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting to me. You've got some work ahead of you that I think a lot of people are looking forward to read. I know I am. There's going to be a review on my channel of Callus and Crow.
Excellent.
I'm excited for that because I'm always nervous because I read a book and I hope that it comes across to the author the inspiration that I gained from their work. So that's coming soon. I just want to put that in there.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's good.
Nice. Is there anything that particular going on with you or your work right now that we haven't touched on or that you'd like to highlight?
I've got a book tour coming up, virtual book tour in a week or two, which I'm really excited about. That's the first time. It's going to be the first time I've had feedback from from almost like the next tier of critical thinkers. So kind of a bit nervous, but feedback is feedback. If they hated it, I will learn from that. So
who's the book tour through?
Escapist Book Company.
Awesome. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to, but yeah, they do good stuff. I'm actually
they are brilliant.
I'm actually a part of one of theirs. I'm doing AJ Calvin's Exile. I had no idea that you were doing a book tour. Maybe I was too late because I think she sent around like a sign up list. I think that's what they do for booktubers to sign on.
The other side, They've been great. They've been really sort of supportive, welcoming. They've made it easy. I'm really happy. Yeah. So hopefully a bit of exposure through that.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And has your experience with the writing community been the same as mine? Like, I don't know what I expected, but it surely wasn't as refreshing and genuine and nice and kind as what I've gotten. Did you have a similar experience?
Yeah. I honestly thought it'd be this kind of arms folded, like, who's this guy? This guy? What does he know? But people have just been so supportive and just nice and welcoming, and everybody seems to have this kind of ethos that you have to help each other up, and you have to just build the community, and it's so impressive and so wonderful to be part of it. So I obviously try and do the same. So if anybody needs a hand, if I can do it, please get in touch. I'm happy to support anyone.
That's totally in line of the image I have of you. Just talking to you, like we talk all the time. I love it.
Yeah,
it's cool how we can have friends across the world.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
there's some really terrible stuff about the internet, but this is an absolute positive.
Yeah, 100%. I think all technology has the kind of darkness, but there's always a good to counterbalance the dark.
I totally agree with you, and well, I don't know what to say, because gosh, we looked forward to this for so long, and it went so quick, but this won't be our last one.
Yeah, I can't believe we've gone so far. It feels like 5 minutes.
It does. It really does. And that's the beauty of and what I'd like to do with the interviews. And when I first started, I was nervous. I didn't really know that I would be good at it. And ever since then, I've just gotten a love for just getting the real person and what they think during the process, what they do, what inspired them, what still inspires. It's just become a really intricate part to what I'm doing right now, at least, especially for, my channel, but more so mentally as a person. So I wanted to just really thank you. I'm honored that you came on. I respect you. I respect what you're doing, and just I appreciate you.
No, I'm really, really pleased to be here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You too. And I want to make sure everybody that is watching now and in the future, all the links that we spoke about will be in the description. There's a couple I don't have at the moment that I'm going to stick around after we're done here, and I'll get the last couple links from you. But they will be in there, guys. So again, I appreciate you. And guys, go pick up Callus and Crow. You won't be unsatisfied. And he couldn't be a better guy. So let's support the indies and the authors and their dedication and hard work. But until next time, guys, thank you for joining Beard of Darkness Book Reviews. And stay imaginative, stay creative, and have a good day.